After 18 weeks of some of the most interesting football we've ever seen, the board is finally set. The greatest tournament in sports is just a few hours away, and although everyone is busy plotting out how their favorite team is going to win it all, or who could finally bring down the Chiefs, I think it's really important to savor this first round. After all, this weekend across 3 days, we'll be seeing shocking upsets, clashing rivals, in the beginning of two teams' journeys to the biggest game in sports. This is everything you need to know before the 2024 NFL playoffs. Now, starting with the first game of Wildcard Weekend, we're going to start with the 4-5 matchup in the AFC. It's a matchup between the back-to-back AFC South champion Houston Texans and the up-and-coming Los Angeles Chargers, but we're going to start with the hosting Houston Texans. Truly, it's just been a really up-and-down year for the Texans this year. After starting out 5-1, they've gone 5-6, losing some truly disappointing games to the Jets and Titans, in addition to their biggest losses. The biggest issue has been the interior offensive line, which, between injuries and poor play, has gotten second-year quarterback CJ Stroud absolutely hammered unless he can get the ball out quickly. And that's even gotten harder now that Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell have gone down for the rest of the year with injuries. And now, yes, I do know that Stroud still has his number one guy, Nico Collins, to link up with, and Joe Mixon has been a revelation in the backfield, rushing for 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns in this pass-heavy offense. We can't forget to mention how solid this defense has been too. The secondary is just full of ball hawks, and reigning Defensive Rookie of the Year Will Anderson Jr. has been showing flashes of being a top pass rusher in the NFL. Combining all of that with a weak AFC South, it helped the Texans become one of the first teams in the league to clinch a playoff berth, even if they didn't get one of the higher seeds like everyone thought coming into this year. They'll be welcoming in the Los Angeles Chargers, riding the high of a one-year rebuild. Helmed by new head coach Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers put up a season good enough to win any division except for the one with the Chiefs in it, of course. 7 of their 11 wins have been by double digits, and while they have struggled against playoff teams, losing to the Chiefs twice, as well as the Steelers, Ravens, and Bucks, they've been competitive in almost every matchup they've played this year. And simply put, their keys to success are going to be to follow their new philosophies that they've attained on both sides of the ball this year. The Chargers added Joe Alt in the draft to go with free agent running back J.K. Dobbins, actually giving Justin Herbert time to thrive in a run game to support him. Their defense just has really never been better though, with just that great next up mentality all year long. While there really have been no players with eye-popping stats, guys like Derwin James and Khalil Mack have all had excellent under-the-radar years, anchoring the league's best scoring defense this season. Next on the schedule is the rubber match of a tense division series between the 6-seeded Pittsburgh Steelers and the AFC North champion Baltimore Ravens. Now, starting with the Ravens, after a disappointing 0-2 start to the year, they ripped off a few big win streaks before finishing their final 10 games 7-3. They have 9 wins against teams with winning records, more than anyone in the NFL. And obviously, the biggest reason for their success this year has been on the backs of Lamar Jackson in his MVP-worthy season. He's the only quarterback in history to pass for 4,000 yards and rush for 900 in a season, while also piloting a Ravens offense that had more total yards in a season than any other team in history. Derrick Henry also deserves a ton of credit, rushing for over 1,900 yards and a league-leading 16 touchdowns. One of the biggest reasons that the Ravens were actually able to win their division this year after having really putting out one of the worst defenses in the league is because of Kyle Hamilton. After Marcus Williams got benched and the pass rush began failing more often, Hamilton was moved back to strong safety full-time to anchor the secondary. Since this move was made, the Ravens are first in almost every defensive category, including scoring, yards allowed, and EPA per play. And don't get me wrong, because there definitely are some concerns surrounding the team, especially with an injury to Zay Flowers suffered in Week 18, but the Ravens still do look strong. On the other side though, Pittsburgh's been in just pretty much an absolute freefall for the past 4 weeks. They started the season 8-2 despite questions at quarterback, with new addition Patrick Queen leading the team in tackles and TJ Watt posting his 6th season with double-digit sacks. The defense was top 10 in scoring and looked sturdy against teams like the Chargers and Broncos. Najee Harris rushed for 1,000 yards for the 4th straight season, but the offense became very predictable and underwhelming down the stretch. As I did mention, Pittsburgh lost their last 4 games in a row, with 3 of those losses being by 2 scores or more. The most notable loss was to the Ravens in Week 16, giving away the division and a home playoff game, but they also beat Baltimore in a defensive battle back in November. There definitely still is hope for the Steelers to possibly win this game, I want to say, but it's really going to have to come on the back of just Russell Wilson having his old Seattle Seahawks form basically out there all game, along with George Pickens trying to not fight a fan this game. But we all know that there's going to be a crash out of some sort with him probably. Like, I mean, really, if Tomlin is able to get this locker room back in sync and the defense does play well, they definitely have a shot to win this game, but again, that's going to be a big if. Closing out the AFC, we have the 13-4 Buffalo Bills welcoming the 10-7 Denver Broncos to Central New York. And starting with the Broncos, they've been the AFC's Cinderella team this season, sneaking into the 7th seed by playing some of the best defense in the league. Patrick Surtain has made the best case for a cornerback to win Defensive Player of the Year since Stephon Gilmore in 2019, with 11 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, and posting the best PFF coverage grade of all eligible corners by a full 4 points. The Broncos defense is 7th in the league in yards allowed and 3rd in scoring. Sean Payton has managed to both embrace the Surtain-led defense and unlock a new level of the Denver offense thanks to a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, who would run away with the Offensive Rookie of the Year in pretty much any season but this one. The Broncos do only have 2 wins against winning teams, and one was last week against the Chiefs backups, but they've been extremely competitive, showing special tenacity in Week 17 against the Bengals when Bo Nix went shot for shot with Joe Burrow and nearly won. No offense is really going to feel comfortable against Denver, and if their offense can get rolling, then they have a shot really at any time of winning a game. The Bills, on the other hand, they've had one speed all year, and that's just been full steam ahead, try to get to the Super Bowl. Josh Allen made the best MVP case of his career in 2024 with 40 total touchdowns to 6 interceptions and the second best record in the conference. While Buffalo's division is undoubtedly soft, they've still won most of their big games, with their midseason win over the Chiefs being their crown jewel. Still though, when James Cook just hasn't gotten going, the offense has still had off days, like back in their back-to-back losses to Baltimore and Houston. That said though, Buffalo has one of the most effective run games in the league behind a sneakily great offensive line and Josh Allen's rushing ability, and their defense has played well despite their lack of personnel. Buffalo's going to get to host almost every playoff game they're in, and they'll likely be favored to win each one as well. Now looking to the NFC side though, we actually have a rematch of the very first NFL game this year, with the 2-seeded Eagles welcoming in the 7-seed Legends in the Green Bay Packers. The Packers were the first team to ever win a playoff game from the 7 slot, and they're certainly a better team this season in spite of a few injuries. Jordan Love has continued to look elite in his 15 healthy games, but he is nursing an injury to his throwing arm, and although backup Malik Willis was solid earlier in the season, I don't think anyone wants their backup starting a road playoff game. Don't worry though, I know there still is good news though. As we all know, Green Bay made the move to sign Josh Jacobs to lead the backfield, who ended the season 4th in the NFC in rushing yards and 2nd in touchdowns. And even though the team continues to not have a clear-cut number 1 in the receiving room, Love's ability to spread the ball around between Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, Romeo Doubs, and others has been absolutely great. Even with Christian Watson going down at the end of the season, he still should be able to make up the difference. Not only that too, but the defense is much improved from last season, allowing the 6th fewest yards and points per game. Green Bay has done their business against everyone except for their rivals, going 1-5 in the division, but are 10-1 against everyone else in the league, with their last 4 wins being by 2 scores or more. And well, the Eagles, they've pretty much just been good against everybody. It didn't matter if you're a division rival or just some team that nobody has ever heard of, they're still going to whoop your ass. Philly came in just 1 game short of the NFC 1 seed by way of the franchise's most dominant season since Carson Wentz's near MVP year. They didn't have an opportunity to play the most of the big names in the NFC, but they do have wins against the Steelers, Rams, Bucks, and Packers, plus a season split with the Commanders. Saquon Barkley had a 2,000-yard rushing season, coming just short of the rushing record, leading the NFL's best run game, alongside a lethally efficient Jalen Hurts, who threw 18 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. The Eagles as a team rushed for more than 3,000 yards and had 29 scores on the ground, while the aerial game saw career years from A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. The biggest just concern for this team all year long has been with injuries, and now that Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol with, again, this video is being filmed on Thursday, so again, he might already be out of concussion protocol, but right now he's still in it, and that's not a good sign. On defense though, Philly's offseason paid off with rookies Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell stepping up for the aging Darius Slay Jr., and the return of CJ Gardner-Johnson has revitalized a secondary that was the Eagles' undoing last year. I mean, honestly, they probably are the most complete team inside of the playoffs this year, with their really just kind of bad loss coming back in September to the Bucks. And now, speaking of the Bucks, on Sunday night, we've got the NFC champion South Buccaneers hosting the Rising Star Commanders. And after a tough midseason stretch, Tampa Bay rebounded to finish 10-7 and claim their 4th division title. And now, yes, I know the Bucks didn't have the toughest schedule amongst all these contenders, but they did take care of business, mopping the floor with teams like the Chargers and the Eagles, and even the Commanders back in week 1. They did take tough losses to the Ravens, Broncos, and rival Falcons, but behind a 4,500-yard year from Baker Mayfield and an outstanding rookie campaign from Bucky Irving, their offense was good enough to make up for a lackluster defense, the lowest rated of any playoff team other than the Bills. On the back of Mike Evans' 11th consecutive 1,000-yard season, though, vibes are extremely high, and Baker is playing at a high enough level to go into a shootout against pretty much any defense, as we saw him light up the Chargers in December. Further up north, though, in the nation's capital, the Commanders are coming off the best season in franchise history. I mean, they came up just a game short of the division title this year. They've won their last 5 in a row, including a shootout against the Eagles and an overtime game over the Falcons. Washington's season was defined early, with rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels looking more like an MVP candidate than a first-year starter. Injuries did limit him around the mid-season, but he led the team in rushing while adding 3,500 air yards. He didn't miss a single start despite being banged up, and he took the Commanders from 4-13 to 12-5. Terry McLaurin and Brian Robinson have also taken big steps forward this season, with McLaurin becoming one of the most feared red zone targets in the league thanks to his connection with Daniels. Defensively, Washington has taken giant step forwards thanks to new head coach Dan Quinn, veterans Bobby Wagner and Jeremy Chin, and the rookies like Mike Sanstrellini and Jazeer Newton, all looking like they are there for the long haul. And the final game to wrap up wildcard weekend is actually going to be what I think is going to be just a generally fun game to watch. It's going to be the Los Angeles Rams playing host to the probably the greatest, or one of the greatest, redemption stories we've ever seen in Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. As we all know, the Vikings were roundly dismissed coming into the season, especially after rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy went down for the year with a knee injury. Thanks to 2 key factors, however, they've turned it into one of the most feared teams in the bracket, held back only by their seeding and lack of home field advantage. Their first piece of their crazy success, creating their 14-3 record, has been their defense. In year 2, defensive coordinator Brian Flores has turned a bunch of young players and past prime veterans into the most dangerous unit in the NFL. It's built around guys like Blake Cashman, who this unit is 5th in scoring defense and has climbed back into the top half of yards allowed after being a poor pass defense to start the year. They are pass rush focused, with Flores' love for the blitz on full display, and have shown the ability to make any quarterback look comfortable behind any O-line. Oh, and they also lead the league in just the dopest celebrations this year.
A dance party going on.
Fun to watch. No, baby, turn me up.
The other piece of their success has been the connection between head coach Kevin O'Connell and quarterback Sam Darnold. O'Connell has shown complete faith in Darnold's ability to work inside his offense, and Darnold has repaid that with a season better than every other of his years combined. He's brought the offense to a level Kirk Cousins could only have on his best days, and thanks to the weapons like Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison, and of course Justin Jefferson, their offense can be just as dangerous as their defense. And now, yes, I do know Minnesota fell on their face in the season finale against the Lions, but they won 9 in a row before that, a streak that included 3 divisional wins. They've shown the ability to beat anyone, although Darnold is unproven in the playoffs. And now we have to flip to the other side and talk about the Rams, who are honestly probably the friskiest team in the bracket, or just in the playoffs this year. After starting the season an abysmal 1-4, the Rams rattled off a 9-2 run before sitting starters against the Seahawks in Week 18. They were decimated by injuries early in the year, but now it looks like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are back to the peak of their powers, and Kyren Williams is showing the world that bell cow backs are cool again with 1,300 yards this season. Stafford cut back on his game-breaking mistakes, throwing 8 interceptions to his 20 touchdowns, although the offense as a whole has been quite middle of the pack in scoring. Nonetheless, they have quality wins, which include a shootout victory over the Bills and a 10-point win over the Vikings. So that's what you need to know about basically every team competing in the playoffs this year. Obviously, we didn't go over the 1 seeds, but they have byes this week. As for every other team, though, that's what I do think, or how I think every team is going to perform. But before I do wrap up the video, I do want to give all of my predictions and just think of how each game is going to play out. But before we wrap up today, I'd like to give my predictions for what is going to shake out in each of these games after all of this research. Now, in the AFC, I'm going to take the Bills over the Broncos in the 2-7 clash. I mean, the Broncos deserve to be in the playoffs, and they've had a great season, but Josh Allen's just having one of the best seasons of his career, and against a rookie quarterback, no matter how good, Buffalo's defense should be able to limit Denver enough to secure a win. In the 3-6 game, give me the Baltimore Ravens taking down the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just don't see the culture in Pittsburgh pulling them out of this free fall that they're in right now. I think Russ has fallen off and kind of come back down to earth, and George Pickens is tearing the offense apart. And I mean, even if TJ Watt and Cam Hayward lead a great defensive effort, Baltimore has been better on both sides of the ball down this stretch. Wrapping up the AFC, I have to take the Chargers taking down the Texans, as much as it does hurt me to say that because I do love CJ Stroud. But it's a tough end to a brutal season for Houston, but CJ Stroud has regressed badly this year in a sophomore slump and will struggle against an amazingly good defense in the Los Angeles Chargers. On the other hand, the Chargers offense is perfectly built to beat the Texans' anti-pass defense, so this honestly might just turn into a bloodbath before the end of the first half like we did see with the Ravens game. On the NFC side, we'll start with the final game of the weekend, where I have the Vikings ending the Rams season in LA. I mean, the Rams have been hot, coming back from their awful start to the seasons, but the Vikings have just been nearly perfect on defense, and I think Sam Darnold will bounce back from the Lions loss with a solid performance against the Rams defense that is still a little too far young for the big time. So give me Coach of the Year Kevin O'Connell for the win over his mentor Sean McVay. In the middle seed matchup in the NFC, I like the Commanders over the Bucs as my only winning rookie quarterback in these playoffs. Jaden Daniels has been electrifying for the past few weeks, and they've gotten hot at the right time, ripping off their last 5 wins in a row, and that heat should be enough to overcome a Bucs offense that doesn't have too much to do beyond throwing the ball to Mike Evans. I do think that this game is going to be close and some crazy stuff is going to happen in this one, but the gap between these two defenses should be the difference. Finally, we have the Eagles and Packers, where I have a caveat to my pick. To simply put it, if Jordan Love is healthy, I'll take him to repeat his playoff performances from last season and upset this Eagles team. That would have to be an offensive shootout because the Eagles will score points regardless, but because of that, if Love can't go or is not even close to 100%, I think the Eagles absolutely dog walk Green Bay. It's also worth keeping an eye on Jalen Hurts' concussion status though, as it will have a heavy influence on the outcome of this game. And if you want to see what NFL players think about Sam Darnold, then click this video right here.